Rod Santamassimo with the Massimo Group, and we're going to get in front of our panelists in just a few minutes. I want to thank you to this session today where we're going to discuss the number one tool you can use to grow your personal professional practice. So what I'm going to do is go like this. I'm going to share some slides just really briefly, tell you about what we're going to talk about, give you some context of things you need to be thinking about. And then we're going to jump in with these fantastic panelists who have spent their summers working on their business and implementing specific methods that we're going to share with you that put them in a much better position to grow their practices and reap their efforts in Q4 and 2021 and beyond. So with that said, let's jump in here. Let me grasp it really quickly. Here we go. What is the number one tool? You'll be surprised what it is. We're going to share with you exactly what it is. And I'm kind of telling you have access to it already. You absolutely do. So for those who don't know me, I'm the president and founder of the Massimo Group, Massimo Coach, Siri Perform, and a couple other companies. And I've been doing this for now 30 years in a variety of industries. I've written a couple of books that did pretty well on the Amazon circuit, all in the commercial real estate industry and sector. But since then, we've expanded out to more industries and more verticals to work with more clients. The Massimo Group itself, we've coached over 3,000 professionals in the past 12 years. We now have 30 coaches across North America. We have clients worldwide today. Sure, they have a lot of experience, but most importantly, our clients out-earn their peers by 7x. I share that with you to tell you, we're going to give you some specific strategies today that we give to our coaching clients, right? That we share with them and they implement. So you can go ahead and you can start implementing these strategies immediately and start growing your business just as our panelists have today. One thing I do want to announce is I'm really excited. Today is the day. Today is the official launch of my new book, Knowing Isn't Doing. It's available wherever you get your books. I've been working for 2 years now of writing, 12 years in the making, and I am sharing not only what we'll share with you today, but many, and I mean many, of our coaching methodologies and content, all in this book to put you in a better position, well, to gain more margin, financial, personal, professional in your life. That's what this book is about. Again, knowingisn'tdoing.com. If you want more than 10 copies, just email me and we have significant discounts if you wish. So with that said, let's introduce our panelists. We have Ashley Bloom in Sarasota, Florida. Amy Calandrino. Did I get that right, Amy? I should know that.
You did.
Okay, good Italian name. Orlando, Florida, and Rich Valor in Stuart, Florida. I don't know why we picked all Florida panels this time, but maybe because they have the best weather and also we know it's an East Coast time, so it helps them as well. But they're going to share with you in a few minutes some things they're doing and have done over the summer to really grow their business. So before we do that, I want just to share with you a couple of concepts so you can understand where we're going. Okay, so here's the good news. You're all independent contractors. You just are, especially if you're in the commercial real estate industry or insurance or other factors, you just are. And you have to understand what that means. That means is that you are the boss. You just are. You have an entity. That's the legal definition of an independent contractor. So we want you all to understand, if you're taking the approach of, I have to go to work today, it's the wrong approach because you have a business. You're as much as a business owner as, well, as your dry cleaner, as your accountant, as your lawyer, as the engineers you work with and the appraisers. You are a business owner. And when you start understanding that, it makes a significant difference in how you perform, how you act, and yes, the results you get. So understand that. You're the CEO. You just are. You are as equivalent as Gary Vaynerchuck, as Mark Zuckerberg, as whoever CEO you can think of. You are the same level of responsibility. You do. And you're also in control in somewhat the same level of your business's success. So what do we mean by that? here are the key things you need to understand. This is your life, right? You got the production responsibilities, the find, win, fulfill. That's the sales continuum. That's if we stop working on one of the three, everything shuts down. Well, you have responsibilities to see that gets done. You just do. It also means you have to operate. Not only are you the CEO, you're the COO. And that means you got to operate, generate, facilitate your business. It's just what it means to run a business. And also, you're the head of HR. You just are. Recruit, hire, train, motivate, retain. Everything you have to do. Now, you might say, hey, Rod, I don't have any employees. That's not me. Well, believe it or not, it is, because you have to increase your own value and you have to train or motivate yourself. You just do. So think about how you're increasing value to yourself. These are all key principles to where you're going and how you're growing. This is a three-ring circus. This is your world. Whether you like it or not, this is what you should be doing if you own a business. Now, if you just focus on one of these three and maybe just one component of one of these three, then I just have to share with you just what it is. You have a hobby. You really don't have a business. And you can't grow a hobby. You can't, but you can certainly grow a business. If you want more consistent income, if you want margin in your life, you've got to build a business. So when we look at this, we look at the 5 divisions any business has, and we break them down. We look at how can we attack each division with certain methods to make sure that you, yourself as an individual, and as you grow your team, truly have a consistent business. So when we look at that, you being the CEO, the first thing, of course, is sales. And there's so many factors to sales. Who is your client? Who is your avatar? We're going to talk about that. What do you do? How do you reach them? How do you prospect? How do you ask for business? Sales, now you're the head of sales now also, by the way, put that hat on, is just the disciplined act of asking for business. That's what it is. You have to ask for business. So you are the head of sales. You have so many responsibilities. You do. You got to coordinate those. Also, you're the head of marketing. You're the chief marketing officer, CMO. You are. How are you crafting a message to get out to the marketplace so people know, your prospective clients, that you have value and that they want to work with you? That's another element you have to understand and have to command, or you don't have a business. Then, of course, you have the finance part. Since most of you are in commercial real estate, most of you think of finance as commissions. You think of that then equates to pipeline. Oh man, it's so much more than that. Now, if you're just an employee, broker, doing transactions, yeah, most of your finance is your pipeline. But if you're a business owner, it goes well and way beyond that. And we want you to start thinking about that as well. And then, of course, is your operations. We're going to dive into that a little bit. What are the operations? I'll tell you right now, when I look at these 5 divisions, there's no doubt, this is just the way I've learned and what I've practiced over my years and how I've grown my company from being unemployed in 2008 with the Great Recession to now having, sure, luck, but also really hard work, understanding how operations is truly the magnifier of creating a multi-million-dollar business. It just is. So you have to understand operations. And last but not least, personnel. That's you and or the people you tend to work with or want to work with or need to leverage. Independent contractors, other independent workers, virtual assistants, full-time, part-time, all those things you're responsible for. This is your life. These are your responsibilities. If you're saying no, then we're saying yes. You're saying no, I just don't want to do all that. That's okay. You can just transact, and you can transact and you can live on the transaction treadmill. You really won't be growing. You won't be building sustainable income. You will not be building wealth. You won't, but you can make a living. You can. Otherwise, if you truly want to stop, structure, figure out how to do things the right way, then you can, as the panelists have, figure out there's a better way to build your independent business. So With that said, I want to quickly go through what you should be thinking about right now. Okay, sales obviously is prospecting calls. Sales is obviously letters of work when written correctly. Sales is meeting. Sales today can be not email, but absolutely direct messaging. LinkedIn absolutely works from a prospecting standpoint when a certain cadence, and even Facebook messaging works for certain individuals. I saw some folks who are retail brokers, tenant reps. Retail tenant reps, Facebook is a great tool, a great platform to reach out and prospect. Just understand that. Marketing, obviously, you got personal, physical, and digital efforts. Understand what you need to do. Understand how they work together. That's all important for you to build your marketing campaigns and build your programs. They have to be one of these three. In fact, we found that working with thousands of clients and looking at numbers, they need to be all three: personal, physical, digital. They just do. As far as your finance, it goes well beyond pipeline. You got to think about your tax strategies. If you don't have a tax strategy and a tax plan, you're just working for Uncle Sam. And frankly, why would you do that, right? No one wants to be an employee of Uncle Sam unless you're a government worker. I get it. But if you're an independent worker, independent contractor, you don't want to do that. So you need to have the right tax strategies. You just have to. Then, of course, there's budgeting. Most of you don't budget. You need to run a business, to see the variances. Most of you don't look at your P&Ls. You figure, heck, I just got a commission and a split with the house, and that's all I need to know. No, you need to run the business. What's your P&L? And last, some of you may have debt, right? I will tell you, I don't have debt. I don't believe in debt. It's me. Doesn't mean you can't, right? But some of you can leverage debt. You can to grow your practice, to get a new software system, build the operations, hire new people, get a new sales campaign, new marketing director, new marketing program. Yeah, debt can work like that. It can. Just understand finance, you don't see here, is your pipeline. It's just one component, but it's not what you also be focusing on to grow your business. On the operations side, everything should have a process. A process is how you get things done. A process can be automated. A process can be delegated. Just can be. So if you look at each one of these wheels, look at those divisions, do you have a sales process? I bet you do. I bet you have a client onboarding process. Maybe you don't have it written down or in your mind, but you should. You should have a prospecting process, a marketing process, a social media posting process. For HR, do you have an onboarding process? Someone comes on board, do you make them feel special? How do you filter them? How do you interview them? Everything. How do you recruit them? The recruiting process. Everything needs a process. Financial processes, receivables, is a process right there. It just is. Everything should have a process. Processes are easy once you take the time to develop them, understand them. And then what happens is you just start delegating them. And before you know it, things are happening in your organization, your business, and you don't touch it. Those are processes. Those are paramount. And then we talked about human resources again. This is just you going out and aligning yourself with individuals. It could be full-time, could be part-time, could be virtual, could be someone in India, could be someone across the country, across the world. It doesn't matter. You have to understand you have to build your team. And when you start finding, you can figure out there are more talented people out there in this world than doing one of these 5 divisions. For example, if you do your own taxes, why? Accountants are pretty inexpensive. They just are, especially bookkeepers. Why would you do your own bookkeeping? Think about it. Certain things you should never be doing because there are more people out there than you that can do things better than you and frankly are much cheaper than you because your hourly rate is so much higher than these vendors you should be aligning with. That in itself is a significant magnifier of building margin in your life. It just is. So that's the concept and theme I want you all to understand. I want you to think about, and we're gonna give you the tool, but we want you to think about what these divisions are. Do I run a business or do I have a hobby? Am I acting like an owner or am I acting like an employee? Those are some big decisions you need to look on, reflect on and say, yeah, this is where I am, and changes you want to make to get the life you want to have. Many of you, again, are in the field of commercial real estate, and the question always is, why? Why did you enter this field? Why? Is it because you can have unlimited income? Oh, that's nice. It is. What does that income mean? What does it give you? What does it provide you? Security, safety, clarity, freedom, margin. You have to understand why you're in this business. If you're just in it for the money, you're missing the point. And once you figure out the why, then you'll build the business to achieve the why. It just happens that way. So with that said, we're going to jump in with our panelists right now, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And I'm going to have our panelists quickly introduce one another. Each one of these individuals, I'm always transparent. Some are my clients, some are not. It's the way it is. They all have utilized our methodologies in one way or another. They all have reviewed and consumed the book I shared with you earlier. They were early adopters to my book, and they took it to heart, and they made changes in their practice, and they're seeing results. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So what we're going to do first is, if each of you just really briefly just introduce yourselves. Rich, I have you in my upper corner. Rich, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Rich Voller. I have an office in Northern Virginia outside of Washington, D.C., and one in Stuart, Florida. That's where I am right now. And this is our 32nd year anniversary today of starting my company. So it's a good day. And I've known Rod for about 14 years. I've read his material. He's coached me in the past. And I read the book early on, and I love it. I'll tell you about it later when it's more time, but it's a really, really good book. One of the best I've ever read. So I highly encourage you to read it, whether you're in real estate or not. It's a great business book.
Thank you, Rich, for that. Amy, how about you?
Hi, I'm Amy Calandrino, and I'm a broker beyond commercial. I founded 10 years ago, and we focus on helping business owners with their commercial real estate needs. So throughout the business's life cycle, from starting the business to building wealth and helping the principals of those businesses. So that's what we do, and I've been working on building a team over the last few years. So this book has been great.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And last but not least, of course, Ashley, please.
Hi, I'm Ashley Bloom, and I am the National Land and Development Services Product Council Chairman for SVN. I am also a managing director of 3 offices, 2 on the west coast of Florida and 1 in Boca Raton, Florida, which we opened April 1st, right in the teeth of the pandemic. So certainly a lot of what Knowing Isn't Doing was applied to help us through that challenging period.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so I want to dive into this idea of being the CEO versus a broker versus being a worker, right? So you all own your practices, but maybe at one time you were just an agent. Please share with us. So let me go in the same rotation. Rich, I'm going to start with you. What's the difference between owning a company and being a CEO, whether it's a company of 1, doesn't matter, a company of 50, it just doesn't matter, versus transacting? So what do you think is the principal difference?
I think it's a mental difference. It's a mindset you have to have. As you said, you either have a hobby or you have a business. And if you're really in this for the long run and not just about the quick money, you really need to set it up as a business. At one point, I had 3 offices and about 15 brokers working for me. And I found that very challenging. I was the CEO, and I had many disciplines underneath me. And it really challenges you to focus on all those 5 areas that you mentioned and grow each of those so that you are a manager of the company, not the doer of all those different elements. I think it's mostly mental.
Great. Amy, I know you have a growing business. Tell us about your experience of owning a company.
Well, I learned early on, as I was growing my business, that, just really wouldn't be sustainable, long term. Eventually having a family. Once I got my CCIM designation, I really wanted to start a family. I really wanted to have a little bit more of a personal life. Once I was, on my own, I was working as many as 100 hours a week to fulfill all those businesses. So once I started kind of coming up with processes and procedures, I had a little bit of, relief, but it's a constant it's a constant, growing, from, just being on my own just a mere 3 years ago, to, among my different business interests, close to a dozen people.
We're definitely gonna jump back in with you on processes. It's so valuable. Ashley, CEO, what does that mean? How's it different than being an agent?
Being an agent is, you're working on your clients, your relationships, trying to build that. But as a CEO, we actually use it as the foundation that everybody buys into that philosophy, that everybody is the CEO of their own practice. But, really being the CEO, it's helping to have your advisors grow in their own practices. But you said something also, really understanding the difference as a culture between a transaction and a relationship. What's good for a paycheck and what's good to build your business over years and years and years. So I think that's really something as the CEO, so to speak, of our practice, we try to instill from top to bottom.
Right. Great perspective. And right now we're finding, especially, and our clients are finding, if you're out there trying to be a transactor, people generally don't find you valuable, right? Now, if you're a resource, maybe a facilitator, but transactor, that's a tough road to hoe right now if that's what you're trying to achieve. People are looking for solutions. They are looking for help. And I know if you don't feel this way, by the way, you all should feel this way as the CEO of your own companies. You should say to yourself, it's my responsibility. It's my obligation to go out and prospect and tell people what the opportunities are and share with them my knowledge versus cringing on a prospecting call. It's just what you need to do. So let's talk about prospecting. We talked about sales as being a major division of a company, whether you're a company of one or many. So Amy, I'm going to jump in with you first. Part of the sales division is understanding who you're going to call. Who is your client? I know I share with you during our work and in the book as well, understanding what the avatar is that you want to work with. Can you just talk a little bit about avatar, the concept, as well as your application of that concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I really started to think about what avatar I personally wanted to pursue, I thought about what did I enjoy the most? Because I feel like what you enjoy the most and you love, you're going to do the best at, right? So I just found with my particular background, I'm incredibly analytical. And I really am more of like a problem solver. And I found that I really enjoyed working with clients who were a bit more disciplined thinkers. And so I started to think about, what kind of clientele is it that I'm going to be working with if that's that case. And I looked back and I looked at all my inactive clients as a group would talk about which ones did I enjoy the most working with. And I found that it was more the engineer types, the manufacturing types, warehousing deals. Because there's a lot to consider, the power and the processes and the procedures, and it was a lot more intellectually stimulating for me. Not that it's not challenging to do all these others, but that's what drove me. And so I was able to kind of come up with an archetype, manufacturing Mike, and, figure out what it was I'm going to do. And I have a much higher level of satisfaction over the last probably 6 to 9 months doing more of those deals, and then utilizing the rest of my team to run the other deals and then overseeing their work.
Okay, we talk about that and knowing isn't doing. You said you just threw it out there, but what does manufacturing Mike? What is that?
Well, it would be generally I'm trying to work with a big company that's growing because, I find that I'm able to add the most value as an advisor, because I consider myself more of an advisor, when I'm able to kind of be with someone towards the beginning of the life cycle of their business. So maybe they're 5 or 10 years in and they're making the transition from being a tenant to now being an owner. And so helping to bring in the right pieces of the puzzle. So often the 5 pillars that you're talking about, I'm helping to bring in the puzzle pieces for them to make them stronger in their business, to prepare them for making this purchase. And so typically, it's either maybe sometimes it's a women-owned business, maybe it's a minority-owned business, but I represent a number of different. So it could be manufacturing Michelle, But typically I'm trying to target those, they may be in their mid 40s to mid 50s, and they've been doing this some time, and they're ready to go into that second stage part of their company. And I want to help kind of catapult them into that next field,
Awesome.
into that next step.
Awesome, Amy. So listeners, look, Amy has clarity on who she wants to work with, who her company wants to represent. It's so important to have that clarity versus transactors where they think, I'll work with anybody. I just want to transact. That's what I want to do. Oh, that's a tough road to hoe. It just is. But when you understand clearly who you're going after and the messaging that surrounds them, it makes the sales division so much easier. Now, one of you, and I'll get rich now, you shared with me some crazy things you did after reading my book in regards to defining avatars. Can you share with the listeners what you did?
Well, thanks, Rod. Well, the first thing I did is I went in the garage and I got a roll of Tyvek paper and I rolled it out on the countertop, and my wife thought I was crazy. But it really helped me focus more than I've ever focused before. And I said, who is our ideal client? And it actually turned out to be 4. So we do landlord rep, tenant rep, buyer rep, and seller rep. But I came up with names for each of those 4. And then I dug a little deeper, as Rod said in the book. And as Amy was saying, I wanted to really know who is that ideal seller, let's say. And that seller for me is in a certain area with a certain value of their property. Oh, he's got the picture. and a certain price point and a certain type, so that, you know, they were not the ones that the big boys might get or the other ones. So I wrote that for each one of those avatars. And I don't know if we're going to get into it later, but on my website, I have a box now for each one of those that if they go on my website, they can click on which type they are to find out the messaging pieces that I wrote for each that talks about what our value proposition. So I went all the way through this process, and that white paper is kind of like, I call it my treasure map, as I told Rod.
Well, what I love about it, look, it was pretty cool. And if you saw that image again, you would see specific chapters in my book and specific exercises being completed, right? And the fact is, Rich, you could have read the book, but instead you actually implemented what I was sharing, and you're seeing the clarity it's creating for you, correct?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. It's like getting new glasses to put on. It's awesome.
Well, there you go. I like that one. For the one person in this panel who doesn't wear glasses, we appreciate that. So
I have contacts. I wear contacts.
There you go. Okay, so Ashley, let's move away from the sales division. We got some divisions to talk about, and then some margin issues. Let's talk about marketing, because sales is asking for business. Marketing is creating a presence, letting people know who you are and what you represent and what you do. And you talked about, and we went back and forth, that you really dug into this concept of 3 levels of presence. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Certainly, you know, the world has changed very quickly in our industry in terms of marketing. You know, a year or 2 ago, when I saw a GIF, I thought that was really interesting. And now we've really shifted to almost exclusively videos. And, you know, using those 3 levels of presence, especially the digital side, there are so many channels to get people's attention and to get your branding, whether it be a personal brand or your firm's brand, out to the world. And especially we've grown by opening, you know, 2 new offices in the last 24 months, to be able to get into the market and have people know who we are, and then work our way up the pyramid, so that we can, you know, have the physical and the personal meetings as well, because that all 3 go together. And, you know, the other thing we've done is, you know, that it's something that we learned from your book, is to have an admin person really take care of our digital marketing, so that our advisors are able to do the other 2 levels, which take more time, as you explain in your book. So we really have tried to, you know, create the system where we can get all that digital marketing out, and let the advisors, you know, work on, you know, getting in front of people and eventually getting meetings. So that's how we've used that as a guideline to our own marketing strategy in our company.
Okay, perfect. Now it's I love what you said, because that's the beauty of what I talk about in Knowing Isn't Doing is this presence pyramid. And it's really, you said when we go up the pyramid. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to actually share the screen of the pyramid. And you said go up the pyramid. So it sounds like what you were doing is you're originating relationships in a digital spectrum initially, and then you're taking that digital introduction and you're moving up. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, you know what? I gotta tell you, buddy, I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've always focused on, although you're absolutely correct, on the different progression, right? Where there's personal relationships, and I enhance those relationships through physical material later on, and then I just retain the relationships through digital ways. That's, in fact, everyone on this call, obviously, I didn't come shake your hand and say, hey, we go to this webinar today. I didn't send anything in the mail. All I did was post on Facebook or maybe LinkedIn as well. Okay, I didn't post, of course, my team did. But Ashley, that's what you just shared me is really eye-opening. You're absolutely correct. The pyramid, you need to use all three. We found, folks, that if you just use two of the three, it just doesn't work as well. You won't make as much money. The clients that we work with, the thousands of clients those that use all three components make exponentially more money. Just what it is, just sharing that with you.
Yeah,
So,
Rod, one other comment, if I can throw it in there real quick.
please.
Interestingly enough, what we're finding is the digital side of this is actually a powerful tool for recruiting other agents when they see the kind of material that we put out. And it's actually a great way to win business. When we're sitting with a client in a meeting, we say, this is what you're going to get when you work with us. And they're seeing our presence and they're seeing the kind of material we're putting out through the digital layer. So it is helping us to grow our business. And as I mentioned before, we want the actual advisors or the agents to be working on those top two rungs of the pyramid.
But the reason that works, and we talk about this in the book, the reason I love what you're saying, it works is because both your digital material, as well as when you get someone on the phone, they're sharing the same value proposition. They're sharing the same messaging. It's resonating with that avatar, mechanical Mike or mechanical Mary or whatever, right? That is so critically important. And I know that's part of both sales and marketing, your value proposition. It just is. So let's go back to Rich for a second. Rich, so give us one of your avatars, just one, right? Give me the name, just give me the name, and give me the value proposition which Valor Commercial has to that avatar.
Okay, and I can tell it to you quickly, and I couldn't have told you 6 months ago, but I can tell you now. One of those is called 3 Rings, and 3 Rings is a landlord that wants to rent some space, and our value proposition is we realize a lot of our landlords are trying to rent space to the right tenants at the fastest rate. So we developed a platform, some applications in the process to identify, negotiate with, and lease space to the ideal tenants to get the cash flow going quickly. And it's something along those lines. I kind of said it fast, but it's an actual 4-step process that we use. And the 3 Rings is part of that, where we identify who wants the space, who do they want, and who can afford the space. Put all that together in the intersection, that's their tenant.
Okay, so your avatar is 3 Rings. And some of you say, what the hell does that mean? I get that, but to Rich, he understands when I say, Rich, we're gonna create a campaign for 3 Rings, he knows who they are. And that's the beauty of knowing your avatar and having a value proposition, everything we share in my book, and getting that right, and then going out and presenting it. So that's awesome, Rich.
Yep.
So anything you want to share, Amy, before we move forward on finance? I really want to dig in. I know Ashley really nailed the finance part, but on the marketing side, Ashley, can you give us a little bit about what you're doing from a presence perspective? How people know about Beyond, and what is Beyond Commercial? What does that mean to someone?
So we actually had a different name, which I don't want to bring up, but so I went through a strategic analysis probably in 2016. And back when I was a solo, I actually, because that just took my whole time to come up with this whole new name and moniker. But what it means is I kind of looked at the feedback I was getting from the folks that I was working with. And because I'm more of an advisor, And then I stayed in touch with them after their deal. I mean, I just called a client yesterday and I said, how are things going? And he said, I've got another loan to do some more build outs, but I'm having challenges with getting the financing because I can't figure out the deposit dates for everything I had in that last transaction. I was like, I'll have that to you in like 15 minutes. And so I contacted the escrow officer from the previous deal and got him that information. But I heard a lot of clients said, you're always going beyond. And so I thought, well, I asked my husband, who's a great business attorney, I was whether Beyond Commercial could be trademarkable and would work as well as a name. And we kind of went with that. And that was in 2016 that I went into Beyond Commercial. And part of that, when I went through that whole process, was also to eventually grow as well and have it be more of a brand. But we've really distinguished ourselves in Orlando, where people may not know who Amy Calandrino is, but they'll know who is Beyond Commercial.
And Amy, and I got to tell you, Amy, I don't know if you meant for this, but it's actually brilliant what you did. And this is why. And this is where a lot of you say, oh no, right? So for example, the Massimo group, it isn't named after me. You may think it is, it's not. We did a focus group. We gave a bunch of names. I was naming the company Domus after my father, who had a company called Domus. But it didn't resonate. It just didn't work. So Massimo is a superlative, which just means the best, the greatest, whatever. That's what it means. So we said, okay, let's call it the Massimo Group. And that seemed to resonate. Now, what Amy did, which I'm going to have a little issue with down the road, is the way it works with, Amy can go ahead and craft a company. And frankly, I'm not saying she has this idea, but she can go ahead and she can sell that company as she wishes. She just can. She's built an entity and a company and a brand. Massimo, Valor, it's going to be harder for us to sell our companies. It just is, because we are the brand. And the brand, right, has a depreciative value when you go away. Yep. It just does. And I did it myself. I did. I don't know if Amy thought of that when she was creating this company, right? But it's just what it is. So as you're crafting your company, you're crafting your branding, and you become an owner, maybe not today, maybe not 5 years from now, but 10 years from now, all CEOs need to ask the question, what's my exit strategy? There's only one of three. You only have three exit strategies. One is, let it die in the vine. I'm done. Company's done, right? A lot of you will do that direction. That's fine. You're happy, you're retired, you made your money, you're gone. Number two is, legacy. Let the next person take it over, company, right? So that's the legacy issue you got to think about. You got to think about these things. Mm-hmm. And the third is, I'm capping out, baby. I built it so high, now I'm going to sell it, right? And a lot of firms are merging with other firms right now. We know that. But as a CEO, you probably never think about that in those ways. But you have three choices, and what you do every year, just knowing why you're doing this and where you're growing to. That's a great way to put it. Where you're growing to. So a little tangential from the 5 divisions, but Amy, I love that you brought that up. But let's get back now to the third division, and that is finance, because finance goes well beyond pipeline. And I know in your notes to me, Ashley, you really thought about projections and profits. So tell me, don't get into numbers, of course. We don't want numbers, Ashley. But how do you go about running your company from a CFO perspective?
Great question. I start with the pipeline. We do have a CRM system that has a pipeline application, and I use it not only as a starting point for myself, for my individual advisors, but also the way our system works is we have for all the brokers combined. So we do look at that on a forward-looking basis, because that pipeline tells us not only what the gross commission is on the transaction, but also we apply a percentage or likelihood to close, because we all know not 100% of the deals close. So actually, I'm a recovering CPA. I used to be one. I worked for Coopers and Lybrand out of college. So, really that tool, the pipeline, gives you your revenue forecast. And by applying and holding everybody accountable, when we aggregate all of the agents' pipeline and the percentages, we can really forecast what the revenue looks like. Obviously, with the right accounting tools and software, we can look backwards and see what our expenses are and understand our fixed versus our variable costs. And that way we can forecast what we really think the revenues look like, what we know the historical fixed costs are, and apply those variable closing costs and commissions out for those advisors should those deals close. So it really is utilizing those tools, not only to understand what deals you have that are touring, that are under contract, or that are closed, but really what the financial significance of those deals are when you aggregate them together.
Perfect. You use some really, really powerful words there that some people on this call may have never considered: fixed cost, variable cost, projections, forecasting. Being you are a recovering CPA, but you're also a current CFO of your own company. That's what you need to be. Richard, you have a small, Rich, buddy, you have a smaller company. So how do you look at finance from your, is it every week, every month? I mean, how do you control the finance side of your business?
Well, basically what I have now is it's a little old school, but it's an Excel spreadsheet that I developed myself called a deal tracker. And I put all of the deals that we have in there, and I have a 12-month window. So I can see all the way across the top what the deal is, what the commission rate will be, and the split with the company or the agents that work for me. So and then I have a line for the company amount, and then below that I have all the expenses. So I can track every month on a rolling basis, and I plug in. If we've got deals closing 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, I can see, well, we're ahead or we're a little behind. We better ramp it up. I can see that on an ongoing basis. We just got a new CRM called Active Campaign that does have the same sort of thing where we can track the probability and the pipeline, and we just haven't been the training on that yet. But I'm definitely going to be using that, and then I'm going to probably switch over to more of that than the spreadsheet. But what I have is a pretty accurate way, without a probability factoring in, but it's a pretty accurate way of seeing, 3 months, 6 months out, how we're doing against our budget, our plan.
Well, thank you, because I can share with you, working with thousands of you all have worked with brokers as well and agents, that most folks say, okay, let's see what commissions come in, and then we'll kind of figure out what we may buy or what golf club I'll become an attendee to, or, that's how we live our lives. And not me or you all, but most brokers say it's all reactive. When this commission comes in, I'll do this. When this happens, I'll do that. That's not running a business. That's a hobby. Listen to what Ashley and Richard said about, I don't want to call you Rich all the time, buddy. Ashley and Rich said about projections and expectations and looking forward and seeing what's happening. You need to get to that point. We dive into that and knowing isn't doing. We need to get to that point. Now I get to the two biggest levers that no one thinks about, and that is operations and human resources. Amy, you said the magic word earlier on. You said processes. Amy, what do you do? Give me a process you have in your company.
Well, we have a 30-step tenant representation procedure. I would say that would probably be 55% of what we do in our office is tenant representation of office and industrial users. And so we have a specific process that's broken apart by phases that we go through. And it's systematic, and we work towards, what is their target move-in date? And we have to build in buffer, construction timeframes, all those types of things. And we go through, time for their fit plan, time for their needs assessment, going through, also looking through their financials, because ultimately we don't want to get to the end of the road. The landlord looks at their financials and they're not qualified. So that's actually early on in our procedure. So there's no surprises later on after we've gone on days of tours. And so I put together over time that procedure, and we're actually now going to be putting that system into a project management system. I've actually brought on a project coordinator, and we will have for our clientele a Gantt chart at any time of where we are on the specific tasks within their project. So each client will be treated as a project, but that's been something that has built over time, started from a Word doc, became an Excel spreadsheet, and we've kind of honed over time to kind of put together this 30-step tenant representation procedure.
Okay, so Amy, why? What does a process What's the benefit of a process for you?
Well, even when it was on my own, if you're doing something more than once, you really should have a process for doing it. And so you don't want to forget things like I used to be a firm administrator for a law firm, and I would forget all the time after paying everybody to send out their simple IRA checks to their retirement, and then they'd be emailing me like, you forgot to pay my retirement check, and I'm like, oh, oops, sorry about that. So I had to come up with a procedure, and so making sure that I did everything that needed to be done on payroll. And so I eventually did that in that previous role. And then as I've grown, my firm is everything that we do, whether I'm hiring someone new, we have an onboarding checklist for when we get like a lead, and we have a special pitch depending on what type of person it is, and then a protocol for doing it. But it just helps to create quality. I think that quality and consistency is key, especially if you eventually want to work with someone else to do the production. And, you maybe focus more on a sales role and a relationship role and have others supporting you doing production. You want to have a protocol to doing it so that everyone gets a consistent, exemplary experience when they're working with your company.
And thank you. Absolutely true. The quality is consistent. The experience is consistent. It's definitely more efficient. Not necessarily, look, initially it's not going to be quick and easy to craft a process. It just won't be. So we got one more to talk about, and that is human resources, which I think is what process does for us and for me. I went from a one-man band 12 years ago to now having 40 people work with, not for me, with me. And it's all automated and processes. And I touch so little things so I can do what I want to do and really what I focus on. And that's what I would think most of us want to get to. We don't want to deal with things we just don't enjoy. Just what it is. Processes helps us get there. The only thing that helps us get there is having people. People is the great lever. It just is. Having talented people around you to work with you, for you, in regards to doing certain things. Ashley, how do you leverage people?
And it's one of the things that, again, I've learned through your work is if you can find someone in your organization or someone outside of your organization to do the tasks that, have a lower cost. I tell my advisors all the time, you set your goal of what you want to make and divide it by 2,000, that's your hourly rate. And again, Rod, this is something I've learned through your work. If you can find somebody else to do that, or you have another employee in your firm that you're paying a much lower rate, that's how we can lever the people so that we can use our time to generate the kind of hourly rate that we want to generate.
Perfect. Rich, how do you leverage people?
Well, it's a good question. I think I have a novel approach that I never used to use before, but in the last 7 years, I've been commuting from Washington, D.C. to Florida about every 2 weeks, 2 weeks in each place. So that's a lot of balls to juggle in 2 offices and a lot of listings. We have about 22 million listed. So one thing I've done is actually partner with a colleague of ours in the Washington market on some of the listings. He's an outside guy, he has his own one-man shop, but we team up. We just co-listed some property, $4 million worth of property together, because he's very analytical. He has strengths that I don't have. I have strengths that he doesn't have. And my sister Nancy that works for us, a very complementary team that we put together on some of the listings. The other one is trying to hire my own agents within my firm in both markets. It's been very challenging the last few years to find the right people that fit the mold, the model that I want. But I think those are the best ways I can leverage those people is to train them with all the systems and processes. And it's great what Amy said. If you do it more than twice or once, and then you want to show somebody else how to do it, it's better if it's written down and it's a process. So I try to do that with the adding a third person in to form a team and leverage that, and also leveraging the people that I have by giving them the tools and the processes that I don't have to be redundant and do all those things for them. So they can do more, I can do more. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how we do it.
Okay, Amy, I'm gonna let you close out, and then we're gonna jump in with the final thoughts. What I found is by implementing these methods that I share in my book, Knowing and Doing, over these last 12 years, creating them is now I get to do things before I didn't think I would really have time to do, right? So now I am starting a new human resource analytical company with someone. Now I'm starting a new consulting division for brokerage owners with one of my coaches. We just split off and started a new company. And now I'm starting, my more exciting thing, I'm starting a new company of coaching non-commercial real estate folks. And that really has got my juices flowing. Now, I still love coaching and running the Massimo group, but I can only do that because, oh, and by the way, on this weekend, I actually, for the first time in 7 years, did what I love to do more than anything else, and that is coach little kids play lacrosse. That's my favorite thing in the world. So, but why do I can do that now versus last year, year before? Well, it's because of what we just talked about, process and people. Those last two divisions are so, they're just ignored by most people. They just are. And they just work and put their heads down and focus on sales and focus on prospecting and do a little marketing and do little tweets and blogs. Yeah, you got to do that. But when you take care of those last two divisions, the world opens up. Amy, I know you're working on some exciting things with your husband. Oh, you love commercial real estate outside of commercial real estate. How are you able to do that?
Well, I think a big thing for me is that the processes and the operational arm can often help you with the human resources arm. If you have folks on your team that won't follow those processes, then you know to then go ahead and replace it. And then you're able to get the right people in the right seats, and you know specifically, you know, what they're supposed to do. And so I've been able to do that just by just bringing on the right folks to support me, and also finding that they really have to be good at it. You know, sometimes, you know, I've thought, well, I could train them to do this, and that's been a mistake. And I've had a lot of challenges in the past, but, you know, going ahead and doing assessments and really getting to know the people, and then going through a process, I'm able to bring on the right people. And so I actually, the other day, went through and analyzed how much time do I actually spend, you know, working my commercial real estate firm. We've started a marketing firm now to support my commercial real estate firm. And, you know, I figured out I work about 33 hours a week, which is phenomenal, you know, considering where I came from. And then, you know, I thought that I would have one child and wait a couple years until I got everything perfectly organized again to then, you know, have another child. But everything was going so well in the middle of this pandemic, and my pipeline was great, and the new business was coming together. So I'm actually expecting number 2. So, you know, putting together all these processes has actually helped my family planning as well. So, so I think, you know, you just have to put together, and you have to be really disciplined and not take the shortcut. If somebody's not doing it right, then do it yourself because it's quicker. No, you got to figure out if that person's capable of doing it, and just having the right people around you. And it's painful at times, you know, as I've had to clean house and bring on new folks, but I learn every time, and I'm able to put more things into practice for the next time.
Awesome, Amy. Thank you. Now, look, folks, I know so many of you are still on this call. We appreciate it. So start asking questions from these folks. You know, they're building businesses. They have gotten off the transaction treadmill, and they say, you know what? I just want to build a business. I want to get more margin in my life. That's what they're trying to do. I would think all of you want to get there as well. Amy mentioned getting another company. For those of you who do other companies, there's really, it's amazing. Well, at least until the election, I think. It's amazing right now with our tax structure. If you have multiple companies, it's amazing what you could do to significantly reduce your taxes. It just is. I do it. I don't think Amy does it. People do it. In fact, for my new book, Knowing Isn't Doing, we actually provide a bonus tax strategy section, which we talk about, think about these things to build more wealth and pay less taxes. And let's hope, you know, regardless of commission outcome, the political outcome, whatever it is, that we still have these opportunities down the road. It's just what it is. So here's what we're going to do. I want you all to ask any questions you can. And again, ask the panelists any questions, but I want to give you the number 1 tool. So here is the number 1 tool you can use to build your professional practice. It's pretty simple. It's you. That's what it is. You are the most important tool to grow your business. You are the CEO. You are. Once you start acting like it, performing, it's amazing how your business And I can tell you from experience of our clients, how your life will change. That's what we want you to focus on. Now, yeah, I'm going to tell you, I wrote this book specifically for you, to give you a manual. This is your manual to take that tool, and go ahead and craft a business that you've always wanted. This is the manual that you need to read. I'm sharing it with you because, look, my sales guys are going crazy. When they heard I was writing a book and really providing many of the methodologies, not all, but many of the methodologies we share with our coaching clients, they were in an uproar. And I said, well, maybe you should read the title, because the title basically says, knowing isn't doing. So I can share our content with the world, because I know ultimately it's the doers that can make all the difference. It's like Rich taking that huge wall and writing out his entire plan, or Ashley looking at his financials in a different way, or Amy crafting processes to create the margin. And now new companies, oh, and by the way, add to that a new baby, right? All because of creating a business that allows them to do that. By the way, there's a whole bunch of thought leaders out there, New York Times bestselling authors, that have given me great praise, and I appreciate their praise, but I am more motivated by individuals like Rich and Amy and Ashley, who said, yeah, the book has had an impact on us. It just, that's the beauty of it. So again, if you want to buy my book, Knowing Isn't Doing, go to the website, go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble, go to Walmart.com, go to Pal Books, go anywhere. You can buy it right now. Today is the launch day. You will get bonus materials, which include a workbook, well, or you'd be like, Rich, a work wall. and then you gotta get one. And then, of course, a tax bonus strategy. And when you buy my book, not if, in Coach Speak, we don't talk if, we talk when, you get access to me on our exclusive Facebook page, where we'll be helping you implement those things that we share in the book as well. So that's where I'll leave you with. Your manual is Knowing Isn't Doing. Now's the time to go buy the book. If you want more than 10 copies, we have significant discounts. We do. Let me know, shoot me an email, and we'll get those out to you as well. So with that said, parting shots. Let me see a quick one question. Okay, so Nelson asked, when you were recruiting, is there or are there any goals or requirements that potential agents want or need? Nelson, I'm not quite sure where that is going. So Amy, if and when you're recruiting, what are you looking for?
We're looking for tigers. So T stands for tenacious. I stands for integrity. I have it written down, but we have a set mindset. We have an avatar that we're looking for, because otherwise, they're not going to fit into the culture, that we've built here. But I'm looking for someone who's going to work very passionately, because we do have goals. We do have expectations, because you need to have a certain number of deals signed up on a regular basis and constantly be planting in your field so that you have closings later on. And so I think you have to look at your specific organization and figure out your specific, culture, and determine, who's going to thrive here. Who do you want to work with, and who do you think is going to be the best? But we figured out that there's like really five adjectives that really fit in here. But I go through a process, and it involves them actually booking on my Calendly. And after I've done an initial, I figured out that this person's a good fit. You'd be surprised how many people I'm thinking about recruiting, and they won't follow through, press the button and book a time with me. They want me to immediately get on the phone and talk to them. Well, they're not going to work well here, because I'm not always immediately available on a whim, because I have to have time to work on the business too. So then they're not a good fit. So you have to have a process to everything.
I just have to, yeah, you have a recruiting process. Absolutely. And the book, I actually lay out step by step what our new client process is. what our recruiting coach process is because you need a process. And I love what you said right there. You're also, by not being readily available, you're setting expectations. What's it going to be like to work with me at this firm? So I love it. Rich, do you ever recruit? If so, what do you look for?
I think I would agree with Amy. We don't have it written down as an acronym, Tiger, but it's the same sort of attributes that I think I have and my other agents, where you have to have tenacity. You have to be able to stay in the game. You have to be learning and growing all the time. You have to want to be learning and making yourselves better, and you have to have the sort of integrity where it's more about the relationship than the check. And it's something you can't really train. You just have to find that. And if you find that in a person, then you hire them. But you can't hire them and hope you're going to train these attributes, because I've tried that and that doesn't work.
By the way, great attribute. We did a promotion for a new salesperson, and the top line was, you must put the company ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of salespeople will not answer that ad. They just won't. They just said, no, it's about the commission. Just what it is. Well, you're not a good fit for us. You don't hit our avatar. Ashley, when you recruit, is there something you're looking for?
Yeah, really, it's culture. We want to make sure they're going to be the right fit. As a Miami Dolphin fan, I often talk about the Patriot way. You use that as an example. That's probably one of the most prominent examples in sports of a culture and a system and a mentality when you come in. And we've turned away a lot of people that we thought could be top producers because we didn't think they would be the right fit. And one of the most important things we look for is their ability, how we think they'll fit in the office and how we think they'll fit in the brokerage community. We do pride ourselves on collaboration. We do provide ourselves on teamwork within the office. One of the most important attributes when an assignment comes in, they've got to be willing to put the best team together, not just worry about, I can get the whole fee, when it may not be the best thing for the client or for the deal. In those, again, working well in the office with putting the right teams together and working with the brokerage community, not somebody who just wants to double end every deal and drive GCI. That's not who we're looking for.
Okay. I know one of the folks asked Amy to share. I'm going to say no. Guys, some of these are they're proprietary information. You just, to ask anyone to give me what they built, that's what we're telling you to do. You need to go out and build it. What Amy built for Amy works for Amy. You need to figure out your process, what works for you, just what it is. So I appreciate the question, but you really got to figure out what works for you, because it doesn't really matter with somebody else. It's got to work for you. Okay, well, with that said, Rich, Ashley, Amy, thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your sharing today. Let you all finish out. Closing comments. Rich, any closing comments?
Yes, the one thing that we didn't cover that I really think is a huge benefit to me in your book, I want everyone to focus on, it's not about real estate, it's about building your business. And that was building the content material to send out to your avatars, starting with who is your avatar and the Massimo matrix to create the messaging pieces. I did that for each one, and I told you about it, like 240 things I've written. We created a messaging piece that goes out to each one. It's on our website. And I don't want to go into it too long, but I wrote a blog today that I told you about. I posted it. And if anybody wants to see the blog, it talks about all those specific things that I did after reading your book that I had never done before. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Ashley, closing comments?
Sure. The one thing also that I think is important in the book is the focus on the personal margin. We all want, I think I heard Amy say she worked 100 hours at one point. I think it's really valuable as you look at your own business as the CEO to also build in that time for the personal margin and build in the systems and the processes so that you can have time for your family or your hobbies or your other passions. Life is short, so, trying to get it all in. So I really have tried to implement that as a mindset or a part of the process when I'm planning, is to be able to keep the personal margin high and become more efficient so that I can make more money and more GCI and build a bigger business, but also have more personal margin. So I think that's kind of my parting shot.
Love it, Ashley. Thank you so much. And certainly last but not least, Amy?
Okay, so I have to admit that I went to your 2020 seminar, and a lot of it was based upon this. And then I got the book, and it wasn't until I had a pain point that I was like, okay, I've been doing all these things, but I really need to do them. I was actually on. We had the book club after it was released, and you shared the statistic that in January 2008. There were 104 commercial real estate brokers. And then by June 2009, there were 50,000 left. And so in a matter of 7 months, half the competitors were gone. And I've actually found in Orlando, there's a lot of folks that like there's nothing happening, but I actually sometimes feel a little bad. We're really, really, really phenomenally busy. But it was that when I heard that, and I heard that statistic, and I hadn't been through the 2000, I hadn't been through that before, that it was a kick in the butt. And I was like, okay, this is like the third time, like I really need to do that. And then, so I started really laying out my plans and executing and doing what I needed to do. And I've taken actions in all 5 areas, and really have sought support and just really see that that things will be really great through the rest of the year and beyond. And just keep working on it, because you never, when do these athletes stop practicing? They don't ever stop practicing. So you always have to keep working on your business as the CEO, and constantly refining and revisiting these things and becoming better. I mean, that's how you'll continue to grow.
Well, Amy, I love it. I love what you're doing, what you're sharing. But here's the most important thing, guys. What they just did for you all for the last hour plus was give you knowledge. Doesn't matter. Right? Knowledge is knowledge. Now you got to do it. Now you can do the action, because knowing isn't doing. So with that said, again, today is the official launch of my book, Knowing Isn't Doing. Go out, grab a copy. Heck, grab 10, grab 20, grab 1,000. Whatever it will be, if 10 or more, shoot me an email and I will be here for you. Okay? So with that said, Rich, Ashley, Amy, thank you so much for doing what you do, and we'll connect soon. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.